A grisly crime scene is discovered in an abandoned trailer in small-town Texas.
You're immediately hit with a foul odor.
I saw a deceased male with his head and torso inside of a large green trash can.
It looked like someone had tried to possibly dispose of the body, but gave up.
The victim is a husband and father of 3. And with the rest of the family nowhere to be found, concerns grow.
There were toys, children's clothes thrown about everywhere. Somebody had left in a hurry. Where's the wife and where are the 3 children?
They were entered into TCIC as missing endangered people. We don't know if this is a potential burglary or robbery.
What unfolds is a homicide investigation with 5 potential victims. But when detectives track down their killer, they find the truth is more disturbing than anything they could have imagined.
She wanted to wipe it off the face of the earth.
She was purchasing items to cover up this crime, all while she had her child in tow.
She's a monster.
You might as well arrest me now, because I'm number 1 on the list.
It's the kind of case that causes you to lose sleep at night.
December 4th, 2012. It's a chilly winter day in Red Oak, Texas, when police receive a frantic emergency call. 54-year-old Susanna Asbel says she's outside her son's home with her husband Terry, and they think something terrible has happened.
They were concerned because they had not heard from their son, Marlon Wade Reese, or the daughter-in-law, Amy Reese, in 3 to 4 weeks.
On the 13th or 14th of October, I had this really bad nightmare. Like something had just was crushing my heart. I just knew it was Wade. My husband asked me what was wrong, and I said, it was a bad feeling. Wade was fixing to start a new job in Waxahachie, and I knew the job, they work people like, sometimes they work them 80, 90 hours a week. I thought, well, you know, he's busy. He started his new job. I wasn't no concern or anything.
Susanna says when Thanksgiving came and went without any word from Wade or his wife, Amy, she decided it was time to pay them a visit.
On December 4th, I looked at my husband. I said, I don't care what we're doing. We're getting in the vehicle and we're going to Red Oak. As soon as I drove up, I knew something was wrong. Wade's vehicle was parked backwards, and it was just full of dirt, like it had not been moved. When I opened the mailbox, it just was bloated with mail. Terry says, well, let me go in the house and see what I can see. He said, you go ask the neighbors if they've seen anything. Got to the neighbor, and I said, have you seen Wade or Amy, or have you seen anybody? And they said, no, we hadn't seen them in a while. And then he says, but we have been smelling something from coming that way. And about that time, I heard my husband holler. He said, what's the address here? I gave him the address, and he says, just, you can't go in there. There's somebody dead in there. And I looked at him and I said, I know it's Wade.
Deputies and investigators quickly arrive and tell Susanna and Terry to wait outside while they search the home.
We entered the residence, which was a mobile home. You're immediately hit with a foul odor consistent with decomposition.
I could immediately see that someone had attempted to pack up the house. There was a TV missing from the wall where it had clearly been on an entertainment center.
There were toys, children's clothes, books, DVDs. It was definitely in disarray. Stuff thrown about everywhere. Somebody had left in a hurry.
In the primary bedroom, they find the source of the smell.
I saw a deceased male lying face down with his head and torso inside of a large green trash can. His feet were out of the trash can and coming through the doorway.
The feet are bound, the hands have been tied, there's a bag over its head. I've worked multiple homicides before this one, but this one was unique. It was shocking. It was apparent that their actions were to get the body completely in the trash can, like they were going to take the trash out.
He had skin slippage and marbling of his skin, which implied that he had been there for quite some time.
We're having multiple discussions about what could have happened, what went on. Is this Wade? Where's the wife? Has he been killed and they've been taken and now we have an abducted wife and abducted children? I want to start talking to people, witnesses, and trying to put the puzzle together.
The Red Oak police showed up and they taped it off, and I just knew it was Wade. I just knew in my heart it was him.
Marlon Wade Reese was born January 5, 1976 in Las Cruces, New Mexico. He grew up in Northeast Texas, raised by his mother, Susanna.
We're like third and fourth generation Texans, so I love Texas. When we moved to Red Oak, we bought a piece of land and we bought a trailer. Wade was a really good little baby. When he started walking, that's when the fun really started, because he was getting into everything, bringing bugs in his pocket and trying to jump off of stuff, and he just thought he was a tough little guy.
Though his parents split up when he was 6 months old, Wade remained very close with his father.
We were too young. It just wasn't going to stay, and we decided to separate ways, but I had a very good relationship with Wade's father. From the age of 5, Wade used to spend the whole summer with his grandpa and his dad, and he would ride motorcycles like crazy. And as he grew and got bigger, his grandpa would buy Wade whatever he wanted. I got married again, and then I found out I was pregnant with Crystal, and Wade wasn't very excited about having another person, because he'd been almost 6 years, it was just, him and I.
My brother was a very good brother. He definitely protected me, and especially when I got older, there's a lot of boyfriends that he did not like. But growing up, man, we had lots of fun.
After dropping out of high school, Wade followed in his grandfather's footsteps by pursuing a passion for mechanics.
Wade was good at taking cars apart, motorcycles, and he would build things. And he always had a job.
He had quite a few girlfriends. My brother was a worker. It was, let's get my stuff together so that I can go be a man.
He was looking for that right woman. Told him, I said, you may have to kiss a lot of frogs out there till you get that princess.
At the age of 32, Wade finally met his match on a dating website. A 33-year-old single mother named Amy Deaver.
Wade said he just met this nice lady in Fort Worth, and he'd been talking to her, and he just thought she was really cute. She had 2 children. Wade was really protective of them. They got along really well. They were very loving. They was always holding hands and kissing on the couch.
In 2008, Wade and Amy got married.
Wade was just ready to settle down. Wade thought he found the one,
Wade called me and said, Mom, can you take Amy and buy her a dress? And I said, sure, I'll buy her a dress. So I took her. We went to Walmart. She picked out a really nice dress.
Not long after that, Wade had another wish fulfilled when Amy gave birth to their son.
Wade was very ecstatic. Wade knew, well, I got a motorcycle partner now. I've got somebody that can teach how to work on cars.
I really honestly feel like my whole brother's demeanor in life, went up a level. You know what I mean? Okay, this is it. I got my family. I got my son.
I was living in North Dallas, and I talked to my husband, and I said, the trailer house is empty. I'm just going to give it to Wade. Amy was very grateful. He was so happy.
I've never seen them argue, never, not once. Amy and Wade were just Amy and Wade.
But their happy home has become the scene of a grisly murder. And investigators are trying to determine what happened.
We don't know if this is a potential burglary or robbery or something that just went bad.
I immediately spoke with Terry and Susanna Asbill, and I learned that Amy was missing, the 3 children were missing, her van was missing along with their dogs.
You could hear jibber jabber from the police saying whoever was in there was something on top, and I thought, oh Lord, I thought they were going to find my grandson dead also.
Coming up, the crime scene provides several clues about the killer.
To abuse a body like that just shows an enormous lack of respect for human life.
And the autopsy reveals startling details.
The person stood up outside the bed in a downward manner, shooting while he was asleep.
Before the search for Amy and the children takes an unexpected turn.
The story just kept getting worse.
An unidentified body suspected to be Wade Reese has just been discovered decomposing in his family's mobile home. After securing the crime scene, Red Oak sheriffs put out an alert for Amy Reese and the children.
In the event that anybody were to come in contact with law enforcement, we would be notified. And they were entered into TCIC, NCIC as missing endangered people.
Homicide detectives then take over, scouring the trailer for any clues.
We were collecting blood, articles of evidence that we could use to compare with DNA that potentially could be left at the scene by the suspect.
His head was wrapped in a trash bag. He was bound using duct tape and rope by the legs. I felt like that the trash bag is probably concealing a manner of injury of some type.
I got the impression this was likely a gunshot wound, and the trash bag had been tied over the victim's head to contain the fluids that were actively coming out of his head.
I noted some blood splatter on the bed. I noted a void in the mattress. I ended up cutting that void open where I recovered a projectile that was a bullet.
Investigators aren't able to locate a murder weapon, but they do find empty shell casings, as well as evidence of a hasty cleanup.
There was smeared blood on the trash can and a dolly with blood smeared on it as well.
It looked like someone had tried to possibly dispose of the body, but gave up in the middle and just left.
He was a very tall man, and bodies are not easily movable. That's the reason they use the phrase dead weight.
To abuse a body like that, it just shows an enormous lack of concern or respect for human life.
We couldn't readily identify the body at the scene because of the advanced stages of decomposition.
Outside the home, investigators find another trash can by the curb.
Inside the trash can, we found several plastic or rubber gloves. We found the boxes for borax laundry detergent and carpet deodorizer. I was able to develop fingerprints on the packaging for a 3M respirator mask, which would have been used to block out any sort of decomposition odor. And I was able to find a fingerprint on a box of contractor trash bags.
Several of the gloves that were found, the duct tape, the mask, those items were submitted for DNA analysis.
It was a lucky break that the trash can had not been picked up and all of those items disposed of at that point, because 2 months had gone by.
The crime scene tells detectives this was no simple robbery attempt.
Somebody was trying to mask a scene, and it was apparent by what I was looking at when I was walking around the crime scene that it was quick. It was not well thought out.
When we went into some of the children's bedrooms, we could see that the closets had been cleared out. I saw several suitcases around the house that appeared to be partially packed up and left behind.
It wasn't a situation where somebody was looking to find something. Somebody was leaving in a hurry.
I'm working something like this and I find out there's children. My focus always is, where are the children? What's going on with the children?
Desperate for answers, investigators pull Amy and Wade's bank records.
We investigated the couple's finances and found pattern to a local storage facility in a nearby city. It was in Duncanville, Texas.
We executed a search warrant there, and we found several items of interest inside the storage unit. We found several trash bags that contained bedding that had been stripped from the bed at the house. We found several articles of clothing that had apparent blood on them. We found several firearms and things of that nature. One of the articles of clothing was a pair of camouflage cargo shorts that had blood stains on both sides and within the waistband of the shorts. We were actually shocked that these trash bags were in this storage unit. We did not think it was going to be that easy.
The shorts that were found could have been worn by a male or a female.
We believe that one of the pairs of shorts that we found in the trash bags belonged to our victim.
Detectives send the bloody pants out for testing. But they leave with more than just another piece of forensic evidence.
When we executed that search warrant and met with the storage facility personnel, we learned that Amy had come to the storage facility with the children. They didn't know what Amy was doing, but they watched the children while Amy was in and out of her storage building. Once we were able to put eyes on Amy and the children, we no longer believed Amy had been abducted.
"24 hours into the investigation of the Reese family's disappearance, after speaking to an employee at their storage unit, police have just discovered that Amy and the children are alive. While detectives are working to track them down, they receive the autopsy report.
The doctor who performed the autopsy told us that because of the advanced stages of decomposition, they were going to have to take extra steps to identify them. Mrs. Asbill had relayed that Wade had a tattoo of a Texas Longhorn tattoo on his arm, I believe, and then a Yosemite Sam cartoon character on his chest. Later at the medical examiner's office, the doctor did note tattoos consistent with the description on the body.
Once we were able to get the identification of the decedent, Wade Reese, we continued our process of trying to figure out what happened. My focus immediately was, where's the wife and where are the 3 children? The pathologist made the determination that Wade had been shot on the right side of the head, and that would have been the entry wound, and that the exit wound was right above the left ear. And he would have died instantly. With Wade laying on his side, we concluded that the person stood up outside the bed in a downward manner, shooting Wade while he was turned away from them, asleep.
The medical examiner also notes burns likely caused by sulfuric acid.
It had been thrown on Wade's face. Whoever did this thought they could take that chemical, and I feel like they were trying to dissolve the body get rid of the body by the chemical eating away at the flesh.
The blood on the shorts found in the Reese's storage unit is confirmed to be Wade's. This, combined with the sighting of Amy and the children, causes detectives to consider Amy a suspect. They talk to Wade's loved ones to see if there's a motive.
Detective Fitzgerald called me, and he said, I'm coming to your house to talk to you. By that time, I'd already cried for 2 days straight. He showed up, and he confirmed it was Wade. I don't think I even cried, to be honest with you. And he said, you don't know any places that they would go. And the only thing I just knew was that Amy's mother lived down in Temple, Texas. She didn't have a very good relationship with her mother, but she still tried to go see her mother because Amy had a little sister.
Amy grew up in South Texas. She grew up in the foster care system. She was a habitual runaway, living with grandparents throughout her childhood. She had been in and out of different group homes.
Amy started at a young age getting in relationships with men.
I want to say the gentleman was probably 20, maybe 25 years older than her.
She had her first child together with this man. This man ultimately was arrested and convicted of sexual assault of a different child.
She directly went to a second relationship, didn't get married, but had another child.
According to Wade's family, he did his best to help Amy and her daughters heal from their traumatic experience.
Amy, she needed somebody that she could rely on, somebody that would nurture her. She didn't have that. She only had one of the little girls half the time. One of the girls went to her grandmother's on the weekend. He wanted to make sure that they knew that they could come to him and they didn't have to worry about anything happening to them. That he was like a safe place.
As far as Wade's mother is concerned, Amy had no reason at all to kill him. But Wade's sister recalls an incident that occurred several months before his death.
Wade and Amy got into a fight one night. Wade went outside and slept in his car in the yard that we had. Well, apparently Amy's daughter called the cops and it's like, my parents are fighting. And the cops showed up and drugged my brother out of his truck while he was asleep and arrested him.
We were able to determine that Amy had also been arrested for assaulting Wade.
We learned that the children had been removed from the home in 2009. But we also learned that they had worked those services and that the children were allowed to be reunited with Amy and Wade.
We were highly concerned for the children initially because we didn't know her status. We didn't know whether or not Miss Reese was involved.
All of the evidence, both circumstantial and physical, pointed towards Amy. It was just a matter of putting it all together.
Coming up, the search for Amy heats up.
Knowing that 2 months had gone by at this point, she could have been anywhere.
And when detectives find her, she makes a startling accusation.
It was abusive. For my daughters, it was getting physical and inappropriate.
So she's levying these accusations against Wade, when in fact, Child Protective Services took the children due to Amy, not her husband.
Days into the search, the unidentified body is now known to be Wade Reese. With the positive ID, detectives are even more intent on finding his wife and 3 children.
There was a teenage daughter and 2 littles. I knew that they had been enrolled in the local Red Oak Independent School District. I was able to talk to administrators and get some key information about the children being unenrolled. It was noted that there was a family emergency.
Records indicate Amy pulled the children out of school on October 15th.
At the scene, when we were going through the mail, it was dated the 16th of October. So the murder occurred right around the time that Amy took the kids out of school. I knew that our target was focusing on Amy.
Knowing that 2 months had gone by at this point, she could have been anywhere in the country or in the world.
Calls to Amy's cell phone are going straight to voicemail, and GPS data has been turned off. So police track her using a more antiquated method, the DMV.
I had our dispatch center start running Amy's name throughout all 50 states, and they were able to get a hit of a Colorado driver's license.
When we found out that Amy was in Colorado, it told us a couple of things. It told us, one, she was okay. We didn't have any reason to believe that she fell victim to anybody. Two, we got pretty excited because we had a general area where we could look for her. We had found the address on her driver's license, and we reached out to the Denver Police Department, requested their assistance.
Denver police locate the children through enrollment information.
We learned that the children were okay. One child had been left with a family member. The other two children, we discovered they were okay. Denver police moved into their procedures and got their local child protective services involved.
When Denver police report to the address listed, they are met by the residents who tell them Amy is not there.
We found out Amy had befriended and was living with the owner, and that owner was able to help her out to watch her kids while she went and looked for a job.
Police convinced the resident to call Amy and falsely tell her that the littlest child is out in the street and they need her to come home.
When Amy responds to the emergency call, she's taken into police custody.
Detective Castro is a part of Denver Police Homicide. He was asked to come in and help, and he met with Amy at headquarters.
My first priority is to, see if I could build a rapport with her. Amy was very responsive to my questions. She was cooperative. She didn't seem like a typical homicide suspect. What I learned from Amy during our interview was that she left Texas to get away from her husband.
Okay, why don't you tell me about that?
He was abusive.
What do you mean he's being abusive?
Emotional, verbal, and for the kids, for my daughters, it was getting physical and inappropriate.
They'd had previous fights where they were both arrested. She basically says that, the final straw on this was when Wade picked up her daughter and slammed her on the floor. She knew she had to get out of this relationship for her kids. She said they left on October 14th in the middle of the night. She took their white van.
That's the last time you saw him?
That was the last time I saw him. My daughters and my son, we snuck out of the house, got what we could get and snuck out.
She said that she returned the next day. She drove around the property a couple times, hoping that he wasn't there. She had to sneak into the house to get their belongings, and then she left. She traveled through Oklahoma, Kansas, and eventually settled here in Denver because she said she liked the area. She wanted to get a job, and she thought that she could come here and basically start a new life. Eventually, we come to a point where I had to ask her if she knew what happened to her husband, and she claimed that she didn't. Just told her, I was just on the phone with Ellis County sheriffs, and he's dead.
He was murdered.
Murdered?
Mm-hmm. Here you are, you're an abused wife. He's being mean to your kids, and you pick up and leave town. I think you did what you had to do to protect your kids. But did you have to do more?
No, I left. When he was sleeping, I left.
I tried to sympathize with her. You know, there's a lot of women in your situation. I think people would understand. I'm trying to draw this out of her, try to get her to explain, you know, why she did this.
To investigators, Amy's response is telling.
I want to go down for this regardless about it. You might as well arrest me now, because I'm number one on the list.
Amy Reese's interview with Denver police raises further suspicions, but she ends it before they can probe any further about Wade's murder.
It doesn't matter even if I have an attorney. I'm going to go down for this regardless if I did it or not. My life is over.
She ultimately requested an attorney to represent her, and she stopped the interview.
Obviously, we didn't get a confession where she said that she murdered Wade, but I think we narrowed down dates. I thought it was strange that, you know, she left on October 14th and then she had to sneak into the house on the 15th. As an investigator, you know, when I'm hearing this, I'm thinking he's already dead at this point, and she's driving around the property making sure nobody's a witness there.
She told Detective Castro that she had gone back into the house and collected belongings. So she was implicating herself in the crime scene.
Amy is released for the time being, but Denver police keep her under surveillance while detectives continue their investigation, as well as request that she submit her electronic devices for review. When they ask Wade's family about the allegations of abuse, they vehemently deny them.
There was absolutely no proof that Wade had ever harmed any of those children. There was no indication that Wade had been anything other than a loving father.
I'd never seen him yell or get angry. 110% I knew my son would never do anything like that, never.
So she's levying these accusations against Wade when, in fact, Child Protective Services took the children from the home, and that was due to abuse and neglect by Amy, not her husband.
Investigators obtain a search warrant for Amy's electronic devices, and what they find suggests her reasons for leaving had nothing to do with the children.
When we had forensics go through her computers and phones, we found that she lived a life of deviant sexual acts.
Within days of Wade being dead, she was already on sexually explicit websites and chat rooms. She was sexting with men, you know, sending them graphic photos of herself as if she knew that he was dead. So perhaps Amy was having an affair.
She was tired of Wade. She was ready to start a new life with somebody else. It was apparent with her deviant sexual texting that was going on.
It showed that Amy had no remorse, that she was able to leave her husband rotting in that trailer for 2 months, acting as if nothing was wrong.
But as suspicious as Amy's exploits might be, what detectives need is evidence tying her to the murder.
We discovered they were on government assistance, and that led us to Amy's WIC card. And when we ran a history on that, that's when we started to tie purchases that she had made.
Through looking at Amy's financials, we were able to locate receipts that indicated she had made purchases both at a Walmart local in Red Oak and then again at a nearby town of Waxahachie.
Investigators compare Amy's purchases to the cleaning supplies found in the Reese's garbage.
I met with the loss prevention folks at Walmart, and we immediately started running some of the barcodes that we had found at the scene. We were able to hone in to the surveillance of when those articles were purchased. We discovered that Amy was on camera. She had her daughter with her. And she's smart. Halfway, she goes to the ATM, pulls cash out, and pays for it with cash. Some of the stuff in Red Oak she purchased with her WIC card.
Amy was purchasing items that she was using to cover up this crime, all while she had her child in tow.
When we discovered that she was on video with the trash can, we knew we had her.
Detectives get further confirmation when lab results come back on the fingerprints and DNA they collected.
We discovered Wade's blood along with Amy's fingerprint in a trash bag that contained Wade's blood, which is a direct link to the crime scene.
The latent fingerprints that were found that were confirmed to be Amy's, in addition to the absence of anybody else's prints or physical evidence, led us to get the arrest warrant on Amy.
Investigators are confident that Amy pulled the trigger. Now, prosecutors must convince a jury this mom turned murderer.
Regards to her childhood and how she came up, I don't know how it relates to why she did what she did. I felt that there was obvious tension in the house. For whatever reason, Amy was feeling pressure to get out of this relationship.
I think she was ready to move on to another man. She was tired of Wade and ready to move on. So she killed him. At this point, we are tying up loose ends, making sure we have all our evidence processed. That way the prosecutors have the best case that we can put together to bring justice to Wade's parents and family.
On January 20th, 2013, Amy Reese is extradited from Colorado to Texas, where she is charged with the murder of her husband, Wade Reese.
I stayed in contact with the family of Wade throughout this entire process. They were asking the same questions that we had. Why? Why did she do this? Why could something happen like this to their son?
The evidence we had against Amy was several DNA profiles. We had latent fingerprints. We had her on video purchasing the items that were used in her attempts to conceal or clean up the crime scene.
When her trial begins in April, Amy makes a surprising announcement.
Amy and her lawyer decided she would plead guilty. So the trial was to determine punishment.
I think she knew that the evidence was stacked up against her.
Rather than contesting the details of the murder, the defense makes an appeal to the jury for leniency.
What her attorney tried to do was show that Amy had a very difficult upbringing. When Amy was on the stand, she says that at about age 11, she began to be sexually abused. She was abused by her own father.
I think Amy was trying to put that out there to justify why she killed Wade. She said that he was molesting their children, and she discovered that, and so she killed him to protect her children. We had local advocacy centers in Denver forensically check the children, and we found no evidence to support that theory.
The prosecution argues that Amy's past trauma was not repeated in her life with Wade.
The fact that Amy is now accusing Wade of abuse, both physical, sexual abuse, it feels very convenient.
It seemed that she had a pattern of doing this. It seemed that this was just her way of getting what she wanted. We could see that she communicated with other men quite frequently in a sexual manner, so that could have been one of the motives that she had.
I also believe that she was already talking to other men and was trying to get out of the situation.
She didn't just shoot him. After she found out that she couldn't lift a dead body, that's when she went and got the stuff, the respirators, the gloves, and was going to put him in that trash can. She wanted to wipe him off the face of the earth.
It's the kind of case that causes you to lose sleep at night. In fact, one of the jurors at the trial had to be excused because he was so traumatized by the details of the case.
On April 21st, 2013, the jury renders their verdict.
She was asking for mercy, but the jury did not believe anything she had to say. And they sentenced her to the most that they could, which was life in prison.
I think justice was served. She can't hurt anybody else. She can't hurt the children anymore. She can't hurt anybody. All I have is a box with my son cremated and the memories in my head.
I would never thought something like this would happen to our family. She's a monster. The only thing I can ask her is why? Why can't you just walk away?
The discovery of a serious crime in a quiet suburban neighborhood or a rural town often leaves a community seeking answers to questions that are as much psychological as they are physical. In the quiet town of Red Oak, Texas, during the chilly winter months of the year 2012, one such discovery shook the foundation of a local family and set off an intensive investigation that spanned multiple states. The case of Marlon Wade Reese, a 36-year-old father and husband who was found deceased inside his own home, serves as a profound subject for analysis. By examining the motives behind this tragic event, the common societal factors that contribute to the frequency of such domestic crimes, the intricate investigative techniques employed by law enforcement, and the fatal logical flaws of the perpetrator, we can glean important life lessons aimed at prevention and understand how justice is ultimately served through scientific rigor and cooperative policing. To understand why a domestic crime of this nature occurs, one must first delve into the complex web of interpersonal relationships, psychological history, and the systemic pressures that often precede violence. Statistically, domestic crimes that escalate to the level of homicide are rarely isolated incidents of sudden passion. Instead, they are frequently the culmination of prolonged, unresolved conflicts, deep-seated behavioral issues, and, in many cases, a history of administrative interventions by agencies such as Child Protective Services. In the case of Marlon Wade Reese and his wife, Amy Reese, who was formerly known as Amy Dever, the external appearance of a reconstructed, happy family masked a long history of domestic friction. The motivation behind the crime, as uncovered by investigators and presented during subsequent legal proceedings, did not stem from a sudden defensive act, but rather from a cold and calculated decision by the perpetrator to exit a marriage and start a new life without the burdens of legal separation or shared custody. The frequency of these tragic domestic cases across the nation can often be attributed to several overarching societal issues. One primary factor is the breakdown of healthy communication channels within households, compounded by a reluctance or inability to seek professional counseling or mediation before disputes reach a boiling point. When individuals face severe personal stressors, financial difficulties, or struggles related to past personal traumas, the household can become an environment of elevated tension. In this case, the female perpetrator had experienced a highly unstable childhood, growing up within the foster care system and encountering domestic challenges from a very young age. Such early life instabilities can sometimes manifest in adulthood as a lack of emotional coping mechanisms, leading to a pattern of unstable relationships and an inability to resolve conflicts through peaceful, conventional means. Another contributing factor to the frequency of these cases is the cyclical nature of domestic discord. Records indicated that the household had experienced visits from law enforcement and representatives from Child Protective Services years prior to the tragedy. Specifically in the year 2009, following incidents where the children were temporarily removed due to neglect and domestic physical altercations, where the wife was identified as the primary aggressor. When families in crisis do not fully resolve these underlying issues, or when the systemic monitoring of such households is concluded once basic compliance is met, the risk of a relapse into destructive patterns remains high. The tragedy underscores the vital importance of continuous, long-term support and monitoring for households that have exhibited early warning signs of domestic instability. For law enforcement, solving a case where a victim has been hidden for an extended period requires a systematic, detail-oriented approach to forensic science and digital tracking. When the parents of Marlon Wade Reese, Susanna Asbill, and her husband Terry first arrived at the mobile home in Red Oak on December 4, 2012, they were met with immediate warning signs: an overflowing mailbox, a dust-covered vehicle parked in an unusual manner, and a distinct, concerning odor emanating from the residence. Upon entering the home, investigators from the Ellis County Sheriff's Department and the Red Oak Police Department had to work backward from a highly compromised scene. The perpetrator had attempted to pack up the home in a hurry, leaving behind scattered children's clothes, toys, and half-packed suitcases, suggesting a hasty departure. The physical clues left behind at the crime scene became the foundation of the case against the perpetrator, highlighting a remarkable contrast between the intended concealment and the physical reality of the evidence. The victim was discovered face down in a large green plastic waste container located in the primary bedroom. The physical challenges of moving a grown adult had clearly thwarted the perpetrator's initial plan to completely remove the body from the premises, a phenomenon often referred to in investigative circles as the challenge of dealing with dead weight. Consequently, the perpetrator had abandoned the effort halfway through, leaving the scene as it was and fleeing the state. Despite the perpetrator's attempts to mask the scene by utilizing cleaning agents, deodorizers, and chemical substances, the forensic details recovered by the crime scene Technicians provided an undeniable narrative of what had transpired. Investigators located empty shell casings and recovered a projectile from the mattress, indicating that the victim had been shot while sleeping. The medical examiner later confirmed that the entry and exit wounds suggested the victim was resting on his side when the crime occurred, dying instantly without any opportunity to defend himself. Furthermore, the perpetrator S attempts to deodorize the area and dissolve the physical evidence using chemical substances like sulfuric acid, only served to leave more distinct trace evidence. Outside the trailer, inside a waste receptacle near the curb, investigators recovered crucial items that had not yet been collected by the local sanitation department. These items included rubber gloves, boxes of laundry detergent, borax, carpet deodorizer, and a 3-met respirator mask designed to block the scent of decomposition. A careful forensic examination of these discarded items revealed latent fingerprints on the packaging of the respirator mask and on a box of contractor trash bags. These fingerprints were subsequently matched to the victim's wife, Amy Reese, establishing a direct physical link between her and the efforts to alter the crime scene. The sophistication of the criminal in this case was remarkably low, which is a common characteristic of domestic perpetrators who attempt to plan homicides. Often, such individuals operate under the false assumption that simple avoidance, cash transactions, and relocation to another state will suffice to erase their connection to a crime. This case highlights several critical loopholes in the perpetrator's planning that led directly to her swift apprehension. First, the perpetrator attempted to utilize a local storage facility in the nearby city of Duncanville to store highly incriminating evidence, including bedding stripped from the primary bedroom, stained clothing, and firearms. The decision to store these items in a facility registered under her own name, where she was seen by staff members accompanied by her children, allowed detectives to easily execute a search warrant and recover direct proof of the crime. Second, the perpetrator failed to realize that in the modern era, an individual cannot easily vanish from the grid while maintaining a family. To establish a new life in Denver, Colorado, the perpetrator had to enroll her children in local schools and obtain a new driver's license from the local Department of Motor Vehicles. These administrative actions left an immediate digital footprint. Once investigators entered the names of the missing mother and children into the Texas Crime Information Center and the National Crime Information Center databases as missing and endangered persons, any administrative hit across the 50 states would trigger an alert. When the Department of Motor Vehicles in Colorado processed her application, the system flagged the location, providing law enforcement with the exact geographical area where the suspect was hiding. The rapid apprehension of the suspect in Denver was the result of seamless coordination between the Ellis County Sheriff's Department and the Denver Police Department. Detectives utilized a clever, non-violent tactical approach to bring the suspect into custody without causing distress to the children or risking a public confrontation. By working with the resident of the home where the suspect was temporarily staying, police arranged for a phone call to be made to the suspect, claiming that her youngest child was unattended outside and needed her immediate attention. When the suspect returned to the residence in a hurry, officers were waiting to take her into custody without incident. This professional, strategic approach minimized potential harm to innocent bystanders and ensured a safe arrest. During her initial interview with Denver homicide detectives, The suspect attempted to project an image of cooperation, while distance testing the police knowledge of the situation. She claimed she had fled Texas in the middle of the night on October 14, 2012, to escape what she described as an abusive relationship, alleging that her husband had behaved inappropriately and physically toward her daughters. However, the investigators' thorough preparation and analytical questioning quickly exposed the inconsistencies in her narrative. She claimed she had returned to the property briefly the next day to gather belongings and had not seen her husband since. When the detective revealed that her husband's body had been discovered and that a homicide investigation was underway, her demeanor shifted from defensive explanation to a resigned admission of her legal jeopardy, stating that she would likely be held responsible regardless of the circumstances. To prevent such tragic domestic cases in the future, society must draw profound life lessons from these events. The primary lesson is the absolute necessity of recognizing early warning signs of severe domestic dysfunction and intervening proactively. Neighbors, friends, and family members who notice prolonged periods of silence, sudden isolation, or unexplained absences should feel empowered to report their concerns to local authorities or social service organizations. In this instance, a period of nearly 2 months had passed between the actual occurrence of the crime in mid-October and the discovery of the victim in early December. Had the family's extended silence been investigated sooner, the children would not have spent weeks traveling across state lines under the care of an individual who had committed a severe offense. Additionally, the case highlights the critical need for robust support systems for children within unstable households. When Child Protective Services is involved with a family, the transition back to a shared home environment must be accompanied by rigorous, ongoing evaluations. The children involved in this case, including a 12-year-old daughter with special needs, were placed in an incredibly vulnerable position, being made witnesses to and unwitting participants in the immediate aftermath of a severe domestic crime. Ensuring the long-term psychological safety and rehabilitation of young children who have experienced such trauma must remain a top priority for social services and the judicial system. From an investigative standpoint, there are several valuable experiences and methodologies that can help police forces catch perpetrators of domestic homicides faster and more efficiently. First, the rapid integration of financial intelligence is paramount. In this case, tracking the use of the suspect's social assistance card, specifically the card from the government program for women, infants, and children, allowed investigators to pinpoint the exact locations and times of her purchases of cleaning supplies at retail stores in Red Oak and Waxahachie. By quickly retrieving surveillance footage from these transactions, detectives were able to obtain visual confirmation of the suspect purchasing the exact type of waste container used to conceal the victim, while accompanied by her young daughter. This visual evidence, combined with the financial records, established an unbroken chain of custody for the tools used in the cover-up. Second, the utilization of comprehensive multi-agency databases is an invaluable tool for modern law enforcement. The instant sharing of information regarding missing or endangered persons across state lines ensures that local police departments, school districts, and departments of motor vehicles can act as eyes and ears for the primary investigating agency. When a suspect attempts to relocate to a different state to start anew, the administrative requirements of everyday life, such as registering a vehicle, obtaining identification, or enrolling children in school become the very mechanisms that lead to their discovery. Now, let us reconstruct this complex case in its entirety, tracing the lives of those involved, the sequence of events that led to a tragic loss of life, and the meticulous journey of the investigators who worked tirelessly to ensure that justice was served. Marlon Wade Reese was born on January 5, 1976, in the city of Las Cruces, New Mexico. Raised primarily in northeast Texas by his devoted mother, Susanna, Wade, as he was known to his loved ones, was a lively and energetic child who grew up with a deep appreciation for his home state. Despite his parents separating when he was only 6 months of age, Wade maintained a strong, positive relationship with both his mother and his father, spending summers on his grandfather's ranch, where he developed a lifelong passion for mechanics, motorcycles, and building things from scratch. Wade was described by his family as a protective older brother to his younger sister, Crystal, and a hard worker who was always eager to establish himself as an independent, reliable man. He spent his young adulthood working as a mechanic, constantly refining his skills with tools, motorcycles, and automobiles. Though he experienced several relationships in his 20s, Wade expressed a strong desire to find a stable partner and build a traditional family. At the age of 32, in the year 2008, he met Amy Dever on an online dating website. Amy, a 33-year-old single mother of 2 daughters, appeared to represent the family life Wade had been searching for. His family noted that he quickly became highly protective of Amy's children, embracing the role of a father figure with enthusiasm. The couple was married in a simple ceremony in the year 2008, and, not long after, their family expanded with the birth of their son. For Wade, the arrival of his son was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream, providing him with a partner to teach mechanics and share his love for the outdoors. Recognizing the young family's need for stability, Wade's mother, Susanna, generously gifted them a mobile home situated on a piece of land in the town of Red Oak, Texas. To external observers, the family appeared to be settling into a comfortable, productive routine. Wade secured a promising new job in the nearby city of Waxahachie, which required long hours, sometimes up to 80 or 90 hours a week. His mother and sister believed his long hours explained why contact with him had become less frequent in the autumn of the year 2012. However, beneath the surface, serious problems were developing within the household. The history of domestic disputes, which had previously led to temporary intervention by Child Protective Services and the arrest of Amy for physical altercation, began to resurface. In mid-October of the year 2012, the tension within the home reached a critical point. On the night of October 14, 2012, while Marlon Wade Reese lay sleeping in his bed, Amy Reese made the calculated decision to end her husband's life. Utilizing a firearm kept within the home, she shot him twice in the head, causing his immediate passing. The subsequent actions of the perpetrator revealed a chilling lack of regard for the gravity of her actions and the welfare of her children. Rather than reporting the incident or seeking assistance, she began a systematic effort to clean the primary bedroom and conceal the crime. She enlisted the assistance of her 12-year-old daughter, who was on the autism spectrum, to help her plan and carry out the cover-up. Together, they traveled to a local retail store in Waxahachie, utilizing a social assistance card to purchase large green plastic trash containers, borax, bleach, laundry detergents, and heavy-duty contractor trash bags. Back at the mobile home, the perpetrator attempted to place Wade's body inside one of the newly purchased trash containers to facilitate its removal from the property. However, the physical reality of attempting to lift and transport a grown man proved too difficult. Realizing she could not complete the task, she bound his feet with rope, tied his hands, placed a plastic bag over his head to contain any fluids, and left him face down in the green trash container, partially positioned inside the doorway of the primary bedroom. She then applied sulfuric acid to his face in a misguided attempt to accelerate decomposition and prevent identification, and she placed a 3-met respirator mask nearby to mitigate the smell as she packed up the household. Within 24 hours of the crime, on October 15, 2012, Amy Reese officially withdrew her children from the Red Oak Independent School District, citing a family emergency. She packed several suitcases, stripped the bed of its stained sheets, gathered several firearms from the home, and loaded her children into their white van. Before leaving the state, she stopped at a storage facility in Duncanville, renting a unit under her own name to deposit the incriminating stained bedding, clothing, and firearms, apparently believing these items would remain secure and hidden from view indefinitely. For nearly 2 months, the mobile home in Red Oak remained silent and dark, while the body of Marlon Wade Reese remained undiscovered. During this time, his mother, Susanna Asbill, experienced a deep sense of unease, having had a distressing dream in mid-October that she felt was connected to her son's well-being. When Thanksgiving passed without any communication from Wade or Amy, Susanna decided she could no longer wait. On December 4, 2012, she and her husband Terry drove to the property in Red Oak. Upon arrival, their worst fears were realized. The home appeared abandoned, the vehicle was covered in thick dirt, and the mailbox was bloated with weeks of unopened mail. After speaking with a neighbor who reported a strange odor coming from the direction of the mobile home, Terry entered the residence to investigate. Inside, he discovered the tragic scene in the primary bedroom and immediately instructed his wife to stay outside while he contacted emergency services. When deputies from the Ellis County Sheriff's Department arrived, they secured the compromised scene and began the intensive process of collecting physical evidence. The advanced state of decomposition made immediate visual identification impossible, but the medical examiner was eventually able to confirm the victim's identity through distinctive tattoos, including a Texas Longhorn on his arm and a cartoon character on his chest. Homicide detectives immediately focused their efforts on locating the missing wife and 3 children, entering them into national databases as missing and endangered persons. The investigative breakthrough came through a combination of meticulous forensic work and administrative tracking. Crime scene technicians recovered latent fingerprints from the discarded respirator mask and trash bag boxes found in the outdoor waste container. These prints were positive matches for Amy Reese. Concurrently, financial investigators tracked the history of the suspect's social assistance card, revealing the purchase of the cleaning supplies and the trash container at the local retail store, complete with surveillance footage of the transaction. Furthermore, the search of the Duncanville storage unit yielded the stained camouflage cargo shorts and sheets, with laboratory analysis confirming the presence of the victim, deoxyribonucleic acid. With the physical evidence establishing her involvement, the search for Amy Reese intensified. By running her name through national databases, dispatchers received an alert that she had recently applied for a driver's license in Denver, Colorado. Denver police were notified and quickly located the children, who had been enrolled in a local school. On January 20th, 2013. Following her clever apprehension by Denver homicide detectives, Amy Reese was extradited back to Ellis County, Texas, to face charges of murder. During her subsequent trial, in April of the year 2015, Amy Reese entered a plea of guilty to the offense, leaving the jury to determine her punishment. The defense attempted to present a narrative of severe childhood trauma and alleged that her actions were a protective response to domestic misconduct, seeking mercy and leniency from the jury. However, the prosecution presented a compelling, evidence-based case that thoroughly debunked these claims. Forensic evaluations of the children conducted by specialized centers in Denver found absolutely no evidence to support any claims of misconduct by the victim. Instead, the evidence painted a picture of a cold, pre-planned crime motivated by the perpetrator's desire to end the relationship and pursue personal interests online, completely independent of her family obligations. The prosecution also emphasized the heinous nature of involving a vulnerable young child in the cleanup of a violent crime. The jury, recognizing the severity of the offense, the lack of genuine remorse demonstrated by the defendant, and the overwhelming forensic evidence, rejected the plea for leniency. On April 21, 2015, the jury sentenced Amy Reese to life in prison, with the stipulation that she would not be eligible for parole until she had served a minimum of 30 years of her sentence. This case stands as a testament to the dedication, scientific expertise, and seamless cooperation of the law enforcement agencies involved. From the initial processing of a highly difficult crime scene in Red Oak to the coordinated apprehension in Denver, the investigative forces demonstrated the highest levels of professionalism. For the family of Marlon Wade Reese, the conclusion of the legal proceedings brought a sense of justice, though the profound loss of a son, brother, and father remains a lasting grief. The memory of Wade's hard-working nature, his protective spirit, and his love for his family endures, serving as a reminder of the precious nature of life and the ultimate triumph of truth over deception. The pursuit of justice in the wake of domestic tragedy is one of the most sobering and complex challenges faced by law enforcement. When a life is cut short within the sanctuary of a family home, the psychological impact ripples far beyond the immediate circle of relatives, touching the entire community and demanding a meticulous, empathetic response from investigators. In quiet towns across the United States of America, where life typically moves at a peaceful pace, such occurrences shock the public consciousness and raise profound questions about human behavior, the hidden fractures within households, and the methods used by modern police forces to uncover the truth. By examining these painful events through a logical, analytical lens, society can glean vital lessons in prevention while honoring the dedication of those who work tirelessly to ensure that accountability is served. On a chilly winter day, specifically December 4, 2012, in the town of Red Oak, Texas, a sequence of events began that would expose a deeply disturbing reality. A mother named Susanna Asbill and her husband, Terry Asbill, arrived at a mobile home out of deep concern for Susanna's son, Marlon Wade Reese, who went by the name of Wade, and his wife, Amy Reese. The parents had not heard from the couple in approximately 3 to 4 weeks, a prolonged silence that felt increasingly unnatural. For Susanna, a persistent sense of dread had lingered since mid-October, when she experienced an intense nightmare that left her with an unshakable feeling that something terrible had happened to her son. Although she initially rationalized the lack of contact by reminding herself that Wade was beginning a demanding new mechanical job In Waxahachie, Texas, where long hours were common, the passing of the Thanksgiving holiday without a word prompted her to take action. Upon arriving at the property, the visual cues immediately heightened their anxiety. Wade's vehicle was parked in a reverse position, heavily covered in dust and dirt, indicating it had not been moved for a very long time. The mailbox near the road was bloated and overflowing with unanswered correspondence. While Susanna went to speak with a neighbor, who confirmed that the family had not been seen for weeks, and mentioned a strange odor drifting from the property, Terry approached the residence. It was then that Terry made a discovery so distressing that he immediately warned his wife to stay back and contacted emergency services. When deputies from the Ellis County Sheriff's Office and local police officers entered the mobile home, they were immediately met with a powerful odor consistent with organic decomposition. Inside, the home presented a scene of hurried abandonment. The interior was in complete disarray, with children's toys, clothing, books, and video discs scattered haphazardly across the floors. A television was noticeably missing from its mount on the wall, and several suitcases appeared to have been partially packed and left behind. In the primary bedroom, the investigation took a grim turn. Officers located the remains of a deceased adult male, positioned face down with the head and upper torso placed inside a large green plastic trash receptacle, while the lower limbs extended out into the room. The feet of the individual were bound together. They-kept hot rope and adhesive duct tape. The hands were tied, and a dark plastic bag was secured over the head. The condition of the remains indicated that the individual had been deceased for a significant duration. The positioning suggested an unsuccessful attempt had been made to fully conceal or transport the body, an effort that was seemingly abandoned due to the physical difficulty of moving such a large frame. This physical reality, often described in forensic contexts as the challenge of moving inert weight, frequently frustrates perpetrators who underestimate the sheer logistical difficulty of disposing of remains without assistance. The immediate priority for the responding detectives was twofold: establishing the identity of the decedent and determining the welfare of his wife, Amy Reese, and their 3 young children. Because the home appeared to have been hastily vacated, investigators had to consider multiple possibilities, including a targeted home invasion, a burglary gone wrong, or a coordinated abduction of the missing family members. To address this urgent concern, the names of Amy Reese and the 3 children were entered into the Texas Crime Information Center and the National Crime Information Center databases as missing and endangered persons, triggering a nationwide alert. As the physical scene was processed, investigators began gathering critical items of evidence. A closer examination of the bedroom mattress revealed a distinct void where a projectile had entered, and upon cutting into the material, forensic specialists recovered a spent bullet. Although the weapon itself was not present in the home, empty shell casings were found nearby, indicating that a firearm had been discharged within the room. Smeared biological evidence was noted on the green trash receptacle, as well as on a physical, moving dolly found inside the home, suggesting that mechanical means had been attempted to transport the remains. Outside the residence, a second garbage bin positioned by the curb yielded further crucial items. Inside, investigators discovered several discarded protective rubber gloves, empty boxes for laundry detergent, carpet deodorizer, and sodium borate, commonly known as borax. Most significantly, the bin contained the empty packaging for a professional respirator mask, designed to filter out intense odors and a box that had contained contractor-grade trash bags. Forensic technicians were able to recover a clear latent fingerprint from the surface of the respirator mask packaging and another print from the box of trash bags, providing the first direct physical link to an unidentified handler. To reconstruct the events leading up to the tragedy, detectives turned their attention to the financial transactions of the family. By reviewing bank records, investigators identified a clear pattern of activity directing them to a self-storage facility located in the nearby city of Duncanville, Texas. Upon executing a search warrant at the storage unit, detectives discovered several plastic bags containing items directly removed from the Red Oak crime scene. These included the bedding that had been stripped from the master bed, blood-stained clothing, and multiple firearms. Among the clothing was a pair of camouflage cargo utility shorts, heavily stained with biological fluids, which were later confirmed through genetic analysis to match the profile of the victim. The discovery at the storage facility also provided a vital breakthrough regarding the status of the missing family. Employees at the Duncanville facility informed detectives that they remembered a woman matching Amy S. description arriving at the unit. Crucially, the employees recalled that the woman had been accompanied by her children, and that staff members had watched and interacted with the children while the mother moved items in and out of the storage locker. This witness testimony changed the trajectory of the investigation. It became clear that the children were alive and that Amy was not an abducted victim, but was actively moving about the region, managing physical evidence and attempting to systematically cover her tracks. With the theory of a family-wide abduction dispelled, the efforts to positively identify the victim intensified. Due to the natural changes that occur in remains over time, the medical examiner utilized descriptive physical markers provided by the family. Susanna Asbill noted that her son possessed distinct tattoos, including an image of a Texas Longhorn on one arm and a cartoon character on his chest. The medical examiner confirmed the presence of these exact markings on the body, establishing the identity of the decedent as 36-year-old Marlon Wade Reese. The subsequent autopsy report provided precise details regarding the manner of passing. The pathologist determined that Wade had been struck by a single gunshot to the right side of his head, with the projectile exiting above his left ear, causing instantaneous death. The trajectory of the wound suggested that the individual had been lying on his side, sleeping peacefully, when a person standing beside the bed fired downward. Furthermore, the autopsy revealed localized chemical burns on the victim's face, caused by the application of sulfuric acid. This finding indicated that the perpetrator had attempted to use corrosive chemicals to alter the physical features of the deceased, hoping to hinder identification or accelerate the destruction of the remains, a highly calculated but ultimately ineffective measure. As the search for Amy Reese intensified, detectives sought to understand the domestic dynamics of the household. Wade had grown up in Northeast Texas, raised primarily by his mother, Susanna. Following a separation from his father when Wade was an infant, despite the split, Wade maintained a close connection with his paternal family and spent his childhood summers learning to ride motorcycles and appreciating mechanical work. He was described by his family as a protective older brother to his sister, Crystal, and a reliable worker who took pride in building things and repairing vehicles. At the age of 32, Wade met Amy Dever, then 33, through an online dating platform in 2008. Amy was a single mother of 2 children and Wade quickly assumed a supportive role in their lives, demonstrating a protective and affectionate nature. The couple married later that year in a simple ceremony, and soon after, they welcomed a biological son together, a milestone that brought immense joy to Wade, who looked forward to teaching his son the mechanical skills he cherished. To assist the growing family, Susanna gifted them the empty mobile home on her property in Red Oak, providing them with a rent-free residence to build their lives. However, beneath the surface of a harmonious family life, significant domestic instability existed. Background checks revealed that Amy had experienced an incredibly turbulent upbringing, moving through the foster care system, spending time in group homes, and frequently running away during her youth. She had entered relationships at a very young age, having her first child with a partner significantly older than her, who was subsequently convicted of offenses involving a minor. Her second child was born from a separate, unstable union. While Wade attempted to provide a secure environment, domestic friction persisted. Records indicated that both Wade and Amy had been arrested in the past following domestic disputes. In one instance, a call placed by one of the children led to police arriving and arresting Wade while he was sleeping in his truck following an argument. In 2009, Child Protective Services temporarily removed the children from the home due to concerns regarding neglect and instability, though the children were eventually returned after the couple completed mandated state services. Despite these challenges, Wade's family maintained that he was a devoted parent who never demonstrated violence toward the children. In the days following the discovery of Wade's remains, investigators focused on locating Amy and the 3 children. School records revealed that Amy had formally withdrawn the children from the Red Oak Independent School District on October 15, citing a family emergency. This date aligned perfectly with the timeline of Wade's passing, which was estimated to have occurred around October 14. Because Amy's cellular telephone was turned off and its global positioning data was inaccessible, detectives initiated a nationwide search through administrative databases. A query through the Department of Motor Vehicles yielded a critical hit. Amy had recently obtained a new driver's license in the state of Colorado, listing an address in the city of Denver. Recognizing the importance of securing the children's safety, Texas investigators contacted the Denver Police Department for immediate assistance. Denver officers utilized local school enrollment records to locate the children, confirming they were safe. One child had been placed with a relative, while the other 2 were located in Denver, prompting the immediate involvement of local child protective services to ensure their ongoing welfare. Through careful surveillance, Denver police discovered that Amy had befriended a local resident and was residing at their home, claiming she was searching for employment. To apprehend her safely and without incident, officers coordinated with the homeowner. They requested that the homeowner call Amy to report an urgent, though fabricated, situation involving her youngest child playing near the street, requiring her immediate return. When Amy arrived at the residence in response to the call, she was taken into custody by waiting officers. During her subsequent interview with Denver homicide detectives, Amy initially presented a cooperative demeanor. She asserted that she had fled Texas in the middle of the night on October 14th to escape what she characterized as verbal, emotional, and physical abuse. She claimed that the final incident occurred when Wade allegedly acted aggressively toward her daughter, forcing her to make the decision to leave with her children in their white van. She stated that she returned briefly on October 15th, driving around the property to ensure Wade was not present before entering the home to retrieve their personal belongings, after which she traveled through Oklahoma and Kansas before arriving in Colorado to start anew. However, when the interviewing detective informed her that Wade had been found deceased and that a homicide investigation was underway, her narrative began to falter. Rather than expressing shock or seeking further information, Amy made a series of highly revealing statements. She remarked that she would likely be held responsible regardless of her actions, stating to the detective that she was number 1 on the list and suggesting that she should be arrested immediately. She subsequently invoked her right to legal counsel, bringing the interview to a close. Although a direct confession was not obtained, the timeline Amy provided heavily implicated her. By admitting she had snuck back into the home on October 15th to gather belongings, she placed herself at the scene of the crime during the exact window when the cover-up activities were occurring. A subsequent forensic examination of her electronic devices revealed that within days of Wade's passing, while his remains lay in the mobile home, Amy was actively participating on adult dating websites, communicating with other men, and sending explicit materials showing an absolute absence of distress or grief. Furthermore, investigators successfully traced the purchases of the cleaning and concealment supplies. By analyzing the transaction history of her state-sponsored nutrition assistance card, detectives identified purchases made at Walmarts in Red Oak and Waxahachie. Security camera footage from those retail locations showed Amy purchasing the large green trash receptacle, contractor bags, and chemical deodorizers. In a particularly chilling detail, the footage showed her accompanied by her young daughter during these shopping trips, demonstrating a complete disregard for the emotional well-being of her child. The physical evidence, including the latent fingerprints on the trash bags and chemical boxes, the presence of Wade's genetic material on the items in the Duncanville storage unit, and the surveillance footage, provided a comprehensive and undeniable case for the prosecution. Amy was extradited from Colorado to Texas in January of 2013, where she was formally charged with the murder of her husband. In April of 2013, as her trial was set to commence, Amy entered a plea of guilty, directing the proceedings to focus entirely on the determination of her punishment. During the sentencing phase, the defense sought to present mitigating circumstances, detailing Amy's difficult childhood, her experiences in the foster care system, and alleging that her actions were a protective response to abuse. However, the prosecution successfully refuted these claims. Physical and psychological evaluations conducted by advocacy centers in Denver found no evidence to support the allegations of mistreatment against the children. The prosecution argued that her motives were driven by a desire to exit the marriage and pursue other relationships, choosing a violent and permanent path rather than a legal separation. The jury rejected the pleas for leniency, recognizing the calculated nature of the crime. The desecration of the victim's remains, and the immense psychological distress inflicted upon the children who were brought along during the cover-up. On April 21, 2013, Amy Reese was sentenced to life in prison, ensuring she could no longer pose a danger to her family or the public. An analysis of this tragic case reveals critical insights into the motives behind domestic violence and the sociological factors that contribute to their occurrence. Domestic homicides often arise from a complex interplay of unresolved personal trauma, a lack of healthy conflict resolution skills, and a sense of entitlement or desperation when a relationship is viewed as an inescapable obstacle. In many instances, perpetrators suffer from deep psychological instability, which, when combined with a history of family dysfunction, can lead to extreme actions when they decide to alter their life circumstances. Rather than utilizing established legal channels such as divorce or seeking community assistance, individuals may resort to violence as a misguided means of seizing control. These cases occur with troubling frequency because domestic environments are inherently private, allowing severe patterns of control and instability to remain hidden from neighbors, employers, and even extended family members. The societal tendency to treat domestic disputes as strictly private matters can prevent timely intervention. Additionally, when individuals have experienced a lifetime of systemic instability, as was the case with the perpetrator's history, in foster care and unstable partnerships, their ability to navigate complex emotional challenges is often severely compromised, leading to a higher likelihood of extreme behavioral outcomes. In tracking down the perpetrator, modern law enforcement relies heavily on a combination of traditional investigative diligence and advanced forensic science. In this case, several key details proved instrumental in resolving the investigation rapidly. First, the preservation of the physical crime scene allowed for the recovery of pristine latent fingerprints on discarded packaging materials, which immediately linked the suspect to the cleanup efforts. Second, the meticulous tracking of financial transactions, specifically the use of state-sponsored nutrition assistance cards and automated teller machine records, allowed detectives to pinpoint the exact locations and times where concealment materials were purchased, leading directly to the recovery of high-definition retail surveillance footage. Third, the utilization of centralized regional and national databases, such as the Department of Motor Vehicles Registry, enabled investigators to track the suspect across state lines almost immediately after she established a new residency. This highlights the critical role of interagency cooperation. The seamless communication between the Ellis County Sheriff's Office in Texas and the Denver Police Department in Colorado ensured that the suspect was located, the children were secured safely, and the apprehension was executed without further trauma or flight. The sophistication of the criminal in this case presents a striking contrast between elaborate planning and critical logistical errors. The perpetrator took significant steps to obscure the crime, including the acquisition of professional-grade safety equipment to manage the physicalities of the scene, the application of chemical agents to hinder identification, and the relocation of incriminating evidence to an off-site storage facility under the guise of normal movement. She even took the step of formally withdrawing her children from school to explain their sudden absence and fled to another state to establish a new identity. However, these calculated measures were utterly undone by basic errors, leaving clear fingerprints on discarded boxes in her own household trash, utilizing an easily traceable governmental assistance card to purchase the tools of concealment, and allowing storage facility staff to observe her actions while her children were present, demonstrate the cognitive limitations of a criminal operating under pressure. This pattern is common in complex investigations. Perpetrators often focus intensely on certain aspects of their plan while remaining completely blind to obvious trails of evidence, a reality that analytical investigators routinely exploit to build undeniable cases. Profound life lessons can be drawn from this tragedy to help prevent future occurrences and foster safer communities. First and foremost, the importance of maintaining open, active communication with family members cannot be overstated. Susanna Isbill's persistent concern and eventual decision to check on her son, despite her initial rationalizations, ultimately led to the discovery of the crime and the rescue of the children. Families and neighbors must remain vigilant to sudden, unexplained changes in communication patterns, neglected properties, or unusual vehicular arrangements, as these are often the outward signs of an underlying crisis. Furthermore, there is an urgent need to destigmatize seeking help for domestic instability. Communities must ensure that accessible resources, counseling services, and safe haven programs are widely publicized so that individuals facing severe marital or familial distress recognize that peaceful legal exits are always available. Early intervention by social services, mental health professionals, and community leaders can interrupt the cycle of escalation before it reaches a point of physical danger. To accelerate the apprehension of perpetrators in complex cases, law enforcement agencies can continue to enhance several operational practices. The integration of real-time digital forensics, where financial transactions and cellular data are analyzed concurrently during the initial 48 hours of an investigation, can significantly reduce the time required to locate a fleeing suspect. Strengthening partnerships between local police departments and regional retail networks allows for the rapid retrieval of surveillance footage, preventing the loss of critical visual evidence. Additionally, the standardization of cross-border communication protocols ensures that when a suspect crosses state lines, local agencies in the receiving jurisdiction are fully briefed and prepared to assist immediately. Training officers in advanced behavioral analysis and rapport building techniques, as demonstrated by the Denver detectives, is also vital. By establishing a non-confrontational dialogue with a suspect, investigators can gather critical timeline details and admissions that solidify the physical evidence gathered at the scene. Ultimately, this case serves as a powerful testament to the triumph of justice and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of profound sorrow. Through the coordinated efforts of dedicated law enforcement professionals, forensic scientists, and alert citizens, a complex web of deception was systematically dismantled. While the loss of Wade Reese remains a source of deep grief for his mother, sister, and loved ones, the resolution of the case ensured that his children were placed in safety, his memory was respected, and the individual responsible was held fully accountable under the law. It stands as a reminder that truth and justice will prevail, guided by the tireless dedication of those sworn to protect the innocent. The search for justice is a journey that often begins in the quietest, most unexpected corners of our communities, where the appearance of peace masks a profound and sudden tragedy. In the study of human behavior, especially when examining the darker paths some individuals choose to walk, we are frequently reminded that truth possesses an undeniable resilience. No matter how carefully a person attempts to conceal their actions, the systematic progress of forensic science and the dedication of law enforcement inevitably bring the facts to light. This is a detailed analysis of a highly complex investigation that unfolded in a small Texas town during the winter of 2012. A case that serves as both a sobering reminder of human fragility and a testament to the quiet, relentless pursuit of justice by those sworn to protect the public. To understand the tragedy that occurred in the town of Red Oak, Texas, one must first look at the lives of those involved, the background of the family, and the socio-psychological dynamics that paved the way for such an event. Marlon Wade Reese, known to his loved ones simply as Wade, was a man whose life was defined by hard work, a passion for mechanical creation, and a deep dedication to his family. Born on January 5, 1976, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, Wade was raised in Northeast Texas by his mother, Susanna. His childhood was filled with the typical adventures of a spirited young boy, from exploring the outdoors to learning the values of manual labor. Despite his parents separating when he was only 6 months old, Wade maintained a close and meaningful relationship with his father and grandfather, spending summers learning the trade of mechanics and riding motorcycles. These early experiences instilled in him a lifelong love for taking things apart, understanding how they worked, and rebuilding them with his own hands. When his mother remarried Terry Asbill and his sister Crystal was born, Wade embraced his role as a protective and caring older brother, establishing a strong foundation of familial loyalty that would characterize his entire adult life. As Wade grew into adulthood, he sought to build a life of independence and purpose. He was known as a dedicated worker, someone who believed that a man should earn his way and provide for those he cared about. Although he experienced various relationships in his 20s, he remained focused on finding a partner with whom he could build a stable, lasting home. In 2008, at the age of 32, Wade believed he had found that partnership when he met 33-year-old Amy Deaver on an online dating platform. Amy was a single mother of 2 children, and Wade, true to his protective nature, immediately embraced her and her children, seeking to offer them a secure and nurturing environment. The couple married in 2008 in a simple ceremony, and not long after, their family grew with the birth of their son. For Wade, this was the realization of his grandest dream, a family of his own, a son to whom he could pass down his mechanical skills, and a home filled with life. To help the young family establish themselves, Susanna Asbill generously gifted them a mobile home situated on a plot of land in Red Oak, Texas. To the outside world, and to Wade's supportive mother and sister, the household appeared to be a place of harmony, where arguments were rare and affection was plentiful. However, beneath the surface of this domestic peace, complex psychological currents and historical conflicts were at play. To understand why such domestic tragedies occur with alarming frequency in society, it is necessary to examine the underlying motives and behavioral patterns that often precede them. Relationships that are built on unaddressed personal trauma, unresolved conflict, and an imbalance of emotional stability are highly susceptible to sudden and catastrophic breakdowns. In many such cases, an individual may harbor a deep-seated desire to escape their current circumstances, viewing their partner not as a companion, but as an obstacle to a different, idealized life. When faced with the complexities of adult responsibilities, the challenges of raising children, and the financial pressures of daily living, some individuals possess a profound deficit in constructive conflict resolution. Instead of pursuing legal separation or open communication, they may turn to extreme actions, driven by a combination of emotional detachment, self-interest, and the mistaken belief that they can successfully erase their past and start anew without consequence. In this particular case, subsequent investigations revealed that the home life of Wade and Amy was far more turbulent than their relatives realized. Both partners had experienced past legal interventions arising from domestic disputes, and in 2009, child welfare authorities had temporarily intervened to place the children in alternative care before returning them once the couple completed required support services. This history indicates a pattern of underlying tension and instability. The frequency of domestic crimes in modern society often stems from these exact scenarios where high-conflict households operate in isolation, shut off from the consistent oversight of extended family or community support systems. When individuals isolate themselves, the psychological pressure within the household can escalate, and without external intervention, the potential for harm increases exponentially. The tragic reality of this hidden discord became painfully clear in late autumn of 2012. For several weeks, Wade's mother, Susanna, had felt a persistent and unsettling anxiety. Her son, who was usually communicative, had gone silent. While she initially rationalized this silence by remembering that Wade was starting a demanding new job in the nearby city of Waxahachie, a position that often required 80 or 90 hours of labor per week, the passage of Thanksgiving, without any word from the family, heightened her concerns. On December 4, 2012, Susanna and her husband, Terry, decided that they could no longer wait for a phone call. They drove to the property in Red Oak, hoping to find a bustling household preparing for the upcoming winter holidays. Instead, they were met with a scene of profound stillness. Wade's vehicle was parked in reverse, coated in a thick layer of dust that indicated it had not been moved in weeks. The mailbox was overflowing with correspondence, a clear sign of prolonged absence. While Susanna questioned a neighbor who noted that the family had not been seen for a significant period and mentioned an unusual, unpleasant odor emanating from the direction of the residence, Terry approached the mobile home to investigate. Upon entering, he was confronted with a situation so distressing that he immediately instructed his wife to remain outside and contacted local emergency services. When deputies from the local sheriff's department and homicide investigators arrived at the scene, they entered a residence that bore the unmistakable signs of a hasty, disorganized departure. The interior of the mobile home was in severe disarray. Clothes, children's toys, books, and household goods were scattered across the floors. A television had been hastily removed from its wall mount, and several partially packed suitcases were left abandoned in various rooms. It was immediately apparent to the trained eyes of the investigators that this was not a household that had been systematically packed for a planned relocation, but rather a space that had been abandoned in a moment of extreme urgency. As the investigators proceeded further into the dwelling, they detected an odor consistent with advanced organic decomposition, a signature clue that immediately shifted the nature of their inquiry from a missing persons investigation to a potential homicide. In the primary bedroom of the home, they discovered the physical remains of an adult male. The positioning of the body was highly unusual and deeply troubling, suggesting a desperate, albeit unsuccessful, attempt to conceal the deceased. The head and upper torso were positioned inside a large green plastic utility container, while the lower extremities, which were securely bound, extended outward into the room. The hands of the decedent were also bound, and a dark plastic cover had been secured over the head. The initial assessment of the scene by the processing detectives revealed several critical details. The advanced state of physical decomposition, marked by characteristic changes in the skin, indicated that the individual had been deceased for several weeks, a timeline that aligned closely with the period during which the family had gone missing. The presence of binding materials, suggested that the perpetrator had sought to render the victim immobile or to facilitate the movement of the body after the loss of life. Given the physical stature of the decedent, who was a tall and heavily built individual, the investigators recognized the immense physical difficulty one would encounter when attempting to move such weight, a factor that explained why the attempt to place the body entirely within the disposal container had been abandoned mid-process. A systematic forensic examination of the bedroom revealed further physical evidence. Investigators identified patterns of physical fluid transfer on the bedding and nearby structures. A careful inspection of the mattress revealed a distinct void where a projectile had entered, and upon dissecting the material, technicians recovered a metallic projectile consistent with a firearm discharge. Although no weapon was immediately present in the home, the recovery of empty cartridge casings provided essential physical evidence regarding the mechanism of the crime. Additionally, the presence of smeared residue on the utility container and on a nearby wheeled transport dolly indicated that a physical effort had been made to transport the remains out of the dwelling, an effort that was ultimately abandoned due to the physical limitations of the perpetrator. In the pursuit of justice, investigators recognize that the errors made by a perpetrator are often the very keys that unlock the truth. In this case, the individual responsible for the crime exhibited a combination of calculated preparation and extreme administrative carelessness, a duality that is common in amateur criminal acts. While the perpetrator had taken steps to acquire specialized materials to mask the physical evidence of the crime, they failed to realize that every commercial transaction leaves a permanent record and every physical object handled leaves a trace. One of the most significant initial breakthroughs in the investigations occurred just outside the residence. Near the curb of the property sat a standard household refuse container that had remarkably escaped collection for nearly 2 months. Upon searching this container, investigators discovered a wealth of physical evidence that had been discarded in a highly careless manner. Inside were several pairs of disposable protective gloves, boxes of chemical cleaning agents including borax, laundry detergents, and carpet deodorizing powders. Most importantly, the container held the commercial packaging for a specialized respiratory mask designed to block organic vapors, as well as a box of heavy-duty contractor utility bags. Forensic specialists immediately processed these items for latent physical impressions. Through the application of advanced scientific techniques, examiners successfully developed clear, identifiable fingerprints on the smooth plastic surfaces of both the respirator packaging and the box of utility bags. These prints did not belong to the victim, indicating that another individual had actively handled these items during the period surrounding the crime. The preservation of this trash container was an extraordinary stroke of good fortune for the investigative team, providing a direct physical link between the cleanup efforts at the scene and the specific commercial products used. Simultaneously, detectives began the critical task of financial tracing, a method that frequently provides rapid results in modern criminal investigations. By examining the bank and financial transactions records of Wade and Amy, investigators identified a consistent pattern of transactions leading to a commercial self-storage facility located in the nearby municipality of Duncanville, Texas. Recognizing the potential significance of this location, detectives secured a legal search warrant for the specific storage unit registered to the family. The execution of the search warrant at the Duncanville facility yielded a collection of physical evidence that left no doubt as to the deliberate nature of the crime. Inside the unit, investigators discovered several large utility bags containing the complete set of bedding that had been stripped from the primary bedroom of the Red Oak home. Additionally, the bags contained various articles of clothing heavily marked with physical fluid transfers. Among these items was a pair of camouflage-style cargo shorts that exhibited extensive fluid contact on both the exterior surfaces and within the inner waistband. Subsequent laboratory analysis confirmed that the biological profile of the fluids on these garments matched that of Wade, establishing that the items had been present at the immediate scene of his loss of life. While the physical evidence in the storage unit was invaluable, the visit to the facility provided an equally critical piece of human intelligence. Upon interviewing the facility personnel, detectives learned that Amy had personally visited the unit in the company of her children during the weeks following Wade's disappearance. The employees recalled the visit clearly, noting that they had assisted in supervising the young children in the office area while Amy accessed the storage space to deposit the bags. This testimony was a pivotal turning point in the investigation. It demonstrated that Amy was not a missing victim of an abduction or a home invasion, but was instead actively moving about the community, managing the physical evidence of the crime and transporting her children in the family vehicle. With this realization, the focus of the law enforcement effort shifted entirely to locating Amy and ensuring the safety of the 3 children. Given that several weeks had elapsed since the likely date of the crime, investigators recognized that she could have traveled a significant distance. To prevent her from evading detection, her details, along with those of the children, were entered into the Texas Crime Information Center and the National Crime Information Center databases as missing and endangered individuals, ensuring that any contact with law enforcement across the nation would trigger an immediate alert. The process of tracking an individual who has chosen to flee requires a combination of modern database analysis and traditional investigative persistence. When standard communication channels, such as cellular phone tracking, proved ineffective due to the device being deactivated and the global positioning system coordinates disabled, detectives turned to administrative records. A nationwide query initiated through the Department of Motor Vehicles eventually produced a critical breakthrough. A recently issued driver S license in the state of Colorado under Amy S. name, listing an address in the metropolitan area of Denver. Equipped with this information, Texas authorities contacted the Denver Police Department, requesting local assistance in verifying the residency and securing the location of the suspect and the children. Local officers in Denver initiated discreet surveillance of the listed address and quickly established coordination with local educational institutions. Through these inquiries, they confirmed that the children had indeed been enrolled in local schools, which allowed authorities to verify their physical safety and well-being. This was an immense relief to the investigators, whose primary concern throughout the initial phase of the case was the protection of the innocent children who had been carried along in the wake of this tragedy. The execution of the apprehension of the suspect was conducted with great tactical precision, prioritizing the safety of all involved, particularly the children. Rather than executing a high-risk intervention at the residence, which might have compromised the safety of the young ones, local detectives utilized a creative and non-violent approach. They secured the cooperation of the homeowner with whom Amy had befriended and was residing. The homeowner agreed to contact Amy via telephone, presenting a minor household urgency regarding one of the children that required her immediate return to the residence. When Amy arrived at the location to address the situation, she was met by waiting members of the Denver Police Department and taken into custody without incident. Following her apprehension, Amy was transported to the police headquarters in Denver, where she was interviewed by a highly experienced local homicide detective, Detective Castro. The transcript of this interview reveals a fascinating study in criminal psychology, showcasing the initial attempts of a suspect to construct a narrative of self-preservation, only to find themselves entangled in the contradictions of their own making. Initially, Amy presented a cooperative and calm demeanor, contrasting sharply with the typical profile of an individual involved in a serious, violent crime. She sought to establish a rapport with the interviewer, presenting herself as a protective mother who had been forced to flee a highly difficult and hazardous domestic situation. She claimed that she had made the decision to leave Texas on the night of October 14, 2012, due to escalating physical and verbal discord within the household. She painted a picture of Wade as an individual who posed a direct threat to the safety of her daughters, claiming that a specific physical confrontation on that evening had served as the final catalyst for her departure. According to her initial narrative, she and her children had departed the residence in the middle of the night in their white transport van, embarking on a journey through Oklahoma and Kansas before ultimately settling in the Denver area because of its pleasant environment and the promise of a fresh start. She asserted that she returned to the property briefly on the following day, October 15th, to retrieve personal belongings, claiming that she had driven around the perimeter to ensure Wade was not present before quickly entering the dwelling, gathering their clothes, and departing permanently. When asked directly if she had any knowledge of her husband's current welfare, she maintained a posture of complete ignorance, expressing surprise when the detective informed her that Wade's remains had been discovered in the Red Oak home. As the interview progressed, the detective, utilizing professional interrogation techniques, attempted to offer her an opportunity to explain her actions within the context of her self-defense narrative. He suggested that if she had indeed acted to protect her children from an imminent threat, it would be beneficial for her to state those facts clearly, however. Instead of engaging with this avenue of explanation, Amy's composure began to waver. Realizing the gravity of the physical evidence that was likely mounting against her, she made a statement that reflected a deep sense of resignation, observing that regardless of her innocence or guilt, she believed she would be held responsible, even going so far as to describe herself as being at the top of the list of suspects. When the line of questioning began to focus more closely on the specific timeline of her activities and the physical state of the home upon her brief return on October 15th, she chose to exercise her legal right to representation, bringing the interview to a conclusion. Although the interview did not yield an immediate confession, it provided critical administrative data for the prosecution. By explicitly stating that she had departed the residence on October 14th and returned briefly. On October 15th, Amy had placed herself at the immediate scene of the crime during the precise window of time when the loss of life occurred. School administrative records indicated that she had officially withdrawn her children from the Red Oak Independent School District on October 15th citing a family emergency, while the correspondence found in the Home S mailbox remained uncollected starting on October 16th. This sequence of dates established a tight chronological link that directly challenged her claim of ignorance regarding the state of the household. While Amy remained held under administrative surveillance in Colorado, the forensic laboratory in Texas completed the processing of the physical evidence, providing the final irrefutable proof required to secure a formal indictment. The comparison of the latent fingerprints recovered from the packaging of the respiratory mask and the contractor bags in the exterior trash container resulted in a positive match with Amy S. physical records. Furthermore, the laboratory confirmed that her deoxyribonucleic acid profile was present on several of the discarded items used in the cleanup attempt, alongside the biological material of the victim. To further solidify the case, investigators conducted a thorough review of the financial transactions associated with Amy S. government assistance card, specifically her women, infants, and children assistance program benefits. This tracing led detectives to two specific commercial retail locations, a Walmart store in Red Oak and another in the neighboring municipality of Waxahachie. Upon contacting the security and loss prevention personnel at these locations, investigators recovered high-resolution closed-circuit surveillance footage from the days immediately following the estimated date of the crime. The surveillance video provided a devastating blow to the defense narrative. The footage captured Amy calmly walking through the retail aisles, accompanied by her young daughter. In her shopping cart were the exact items later recovered from the exterior trash container, including the large green utility container, the specialized respiratory mask, and various chemical cleaning agents. The video showed her utilizing her government assistance card to complete a portion of the purchase before using cash retrieved from an automated teller machine to finalize the transaction. This footage was a powerful piece of evidence, demonstrating to a jury not only her direct involvement in the preparation for the concealment of the crime, but also a chilling level of emotional detachment. Performing these administrative cleanup purchases with her young child in close proximity, armed with this comprehensive array of physical, digital, and video evidence, Texas authorities secured a formal warrant for her arrest on the charge of murder. On January 20, 2013, Amy was officially extradited from Colorado to Ellis County, Texas, to stand trial for the loss of Wade S. life. When the legal proceedings commenced in April of 2013, the overwhelming nature of the state's evidence led Amy and her legal counsel to bypass a traditional trial on the question of guilt. Instead, she entered a plea of guilty, directing the focus of the court proceedings to the determination of her punishment. During this phase of the trial, the defense sought to present a narrative of mitigation, focusing extensively on Amy S.'s highly unstable and traumatic childhood. Evidence was presented regarding her upbringing in the South Texas foster care system, her history as a habitual runaway, and her exposure to highly dysfunctional adult relationships from a very young age. Amy took the stand in her own defense, alleging that her actions, while tragic, were driven by a desperate need to protect her children from potential harm, raising serious allegations against Wade. However, the prosecution effectively dismantled these claims by presenting objective, scientific evidence and administrative records. The state demonstrated that following her apprehension, professional child advocacy centers in Denver had conducted thorough, independent evaluations of the children, finding absolutely no physical or medical evidence to substantiate any claims of improper conduct by Wade. Furthermore, the prosecution introduced evidence recovered from Amy S.' personal electronic devices, which had been analyzed by digital forensic specialists. The digital analysis painted a vastly different picture of her motivations and state of mind. The records revealed that within mere days of Wade S. passing, while his remains lay neglected in the Red Oak home, Amy was actively participating in online social networks, engaging in explicit communication with multiple male contacts, and posting photographs of herself. This digital activity continued unabated throughout her journey to Colorado and her subsequent residence in Denver. To the jury, this evidence demonstrated a profound lack of remorse, grief, or fear. It suggested that her true motive was not protection or escape from danger, but rather a desire to sever her marital ties permanently and pursue a lifestyle free of her spouse, choosing a permanent and violent resolution over the legal channels of divorce or separation. The jury, confronted with the clinical reality of the forensic evidence, the photographic proof of her calculated cleanup purchases, and the digital evidence of her post-crime activities, rejected the plea for leniency. On April 21, 2013, they returned a verdict, sentencing Amy to life imprisonment, ensuring that she would remain isolated from society and unable to cause further harm to her family or the community. The resolution of this case offers profound life lessons and warning signs that can help prevent similar tragedies in other households. One of the most critical lessons is the importance of maintaining active, open channels of communication within families. Domestic isolation is often a key precursor to violence. When a household becomes isolated from extended family, friends, and neighbors, the internal pressures can build without any external safety valves. Family members should remain attentive to sudden changes in communication patterns, such as a prolonged lack of contact or evasive answers regarding a loved one's welfare. Additionally, this case highlights the critical role of community vigilance. Neighbors in Red Oak had noted unusual odors and an absence of activity at the home for weeks before the official inquiry began. While it is natural to hesitate to intervene in the private affairs of others, timely reports to local authorities or wellness checks can prevent a difficult situation from escalating into a permanent tragedy. Furthermore, the history of domestic intervention in the household underscores the need for continuous long-term monitoring by support services, even after children are reunited with their parents, ensuring that the underlying sources of conflict have been genuinely resolved. For law enforcement, the successful resolution of this case offers valuable strategies for expediting future investigations. First, the rapid integration of multi-jurisdictional databases is essential. The ability of Texas dispatchers to run immediate queries across all 50 states allowed them to locate the suspect's Colorado driver's license within a short period, demonstrating the power of shared national administrative data. Second, the immediate preservation of local physical evidence, such as the household refuse container, proved decisive. Officers must remain highly observant of the immediate surroundings of a crime scene, recognizing that critical evidence may be discarded in plain sight. Finally, the strategic use of financial tracing, particularly regarding government assistance and commercial retail transactions, can bypass the limitations of disabled communication devices, providing a clear, chronological map of a suspect's movements and activities. Ultimately, the story of Marlon Wade Reese is a deeply human narrative of a life cut short, of a family's enduring grief and of the quiet triumph of the truth, while his mother, Susanna, and sister, Crystal, are left kept ite hat only memories and a profound sense of loss. The systematic work of the investigators and the finality of the judicial verdict ensure that the individual responsible was held fully accountable. In the face of tragedy, the commitment of our justice system to meticulously collect the facts, protect the innocent, and honor the value of human life remains our strongest shield against the darkness. In the quiet landscapes of small-town Texas, where life often moves at a measured, predictable pace, the community of Red Oak was shaken by an event that challenged the collective peace and highlighted the complex, sometimes hidden vulnerabilities of domestic life. The story began to unfold on a chilly winter day, specifically on December 4th, in the year 2012, when the local police department received a frantic emergency call from a mother seeking answers. 54-year-old Susanna Asbill was standing outside the home of her son, Marlon Wade Reese, alongside her husband, Terry. They had traveled to Red Oak out of a deep and growing concern, having not heard from their son or his wife, Amy Reese, for approximately 3 to 4 weeks. Susanna had been carrying a heavy emotional burden, recounting a deeply unsettling nightmare she experienced around the 13th or 14th of October, a persistent, crushing sensation in her heart that made her fear for her son's well-being. Although she had initially rationalized his silence by remembering he was starting a new job in the nearby city of Waxahachie, where long and demanding hours of 80 or 90 a week were common, the passing of Thanksgiving without any contact made it clear that something was terribly wrong. Upon arriving at the property, their fears were instantly heightened. Marlon Wade Reese vehicle was parked in a backward position, covered in a thick layer of undisturbed dirt that suggested it had not moved in weeks. The mailbox was visibly bloated, stuffed to capacity with weeks of unclaimed mail. Seeking information, Susanna went to speak with the neighbors, who confirmed they had not seen the family in quite some time, but added a chilling detail. They had recently noticed a very strong, foul odor coming from the direction of the home. It was during this conversation that Terry called out to his wife, warning her not to enter the residence and telling her that someone inside was deceased. When deputies and investigators arrived at the mobile home, they were immediately met with a powerful, unmistakable odor consistent with organic decomposition. As they stepped through the doorway, they observed a home in complete disarray. It was clear that someone had attempted to pack up the residence in a great hurry. Children's toys, clothing, books, and digital versatile discs were scattered across the floor, and a television was conspicuously missing from the wall, leaving behind only the empty entertainment center. In the primary bedroom, the source of the distressing odor was discovered. The investigators found the remains of a deceased male, lying face down with the head and upper torso placed inside a large green plastic trash can, while the feet, bound securely with kepte hat rope and duct tape, protruded through the bedroom doorway. The hands of the individual were also tied, and a heavy plastic bag was secured over the head. The advanced state of decomposition, characterized by skin slippage and marbling, indicated that the individual had been deceased for a significant period. The immediate questions that gripped the investigating team were both urgent and terrifying. Was this Marlon Wade Reese? And if so, where were his wife, Amy, and their 3 young children? The initial fear was that the family had fallen victim to a violent home invasion, a burglary gone wrong, or a mass abduction, leaving law enforcement to search for 5 potential victims. Marlon Wade Reese, known to his loved ones as Wade, was born on January 5th in the year 1976 in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Raised in Northeast Texas by his mother Susanna, he grew up with a deep love for his home state. Even though his parents separated when he was only 6 months old, Wade maintained a close, positive relationship with his father, spending summers with his grandfather and father, where he developed a lifelong passion for riding motorcycles and working on mechanical engines. When his sister, Crystal, was born, Wade took on the role of a protective and caring older brother, a trait that would define his character throughout his life. After leaving high school, Wade pursued a career as a mechanic, showing a natural talent for dismantling and rebuilding automobiles and motorcycles. In his early 30s, seeking to build a family of his own, Wade met a 33-year-old single mother named Amy Deaver on an online dating platform. Wade quickly grew fond of Amy and her 2 young daughters, taking on a protective and supportive role in their lives. The couple married in the year 2008 in a simple ceremony, and not long after, they welcomed a son together. The family moved into a mobile home in Red Oak, which was generously gifted to them by Wade's mother, Susanna, who wanted to support the young family in establishing a stable household. Wade's family observed him as a dedicated, loving father who worked tirelessly to provide for his family, making the discovery in the trailer all the more tragic and incomprehensible. The primary task for the investigators was to identify the remains and trace the movements of the missing family members. Because of the advanced state of decomposition, immediate physical identification of the deceased was not possible at the scene. However, Susanna Asbill provided crucial details about her son's distinctive markings, noting that Wade had a Texas Longhorn tattoo on his arm and a cartoon character tattoo on his chest. A subsequent examination by the medical examiner confirmed the presence of these exact tattoos, allowing for a positive identification of Marlon Wade Reese. The autopsy report revealed that Wade had suffered a fatal gunshot wound to the right side of the head, with the exit wound located above his left ear, causing instantaneous death. The trajectory of the bullet indicated that the shooter had stood outside the bed, firing downward while Wade was lying on his side, presumably fast asleep and entirely unaware of the danger. Furthermore, the medical examiner noted signs of chemical burns on the victim's face, caused by the application of sulfuric acid. This detail suggested a highly calculated, albeit scientifically unsuccessful, attempt by the perpetrator to dissolve the remains and eliminate identifying features, showcasing a disturbing level of planning and a complete lack of respect for human life. As the homicide investigation progressed, the focus shifted rapidly to finding Amy Reese and the 3 children. Law enforcement officials entered their names into the Texas Crime Information Center and the National Crime Information Center databases as missing and endangered persons. A meticulous search of the exterior of the property revealed a critical piece of evidence: a second trash can located by the curb. Inside this container, investigators discovered rubber and plastic gloves, boxes of laundry detergent, carpet deodorizer, and borax. Crucially, they also found the packaging for a specialized 3M respirator mask and a box of contractor trash bags. Forensic technicians were successful in developing latent fingerprints from the respirator packaging and the box of contractor bags. These fingerprints, along with the physical evidence collected inside the home, were submitted for swift laboratory analysis. A financial analysis of the family's bank accounts provided the next major breakthrough. investigators detected a recurring financial pattern that led them to a commercial storage facility in the nearby city of Duncanville, Texas. Upon executing a search warrant at the storage unit, detectives discovered several large trash bags containing the bedding that had been stripped from the master bed in the Red Oak home, several articles of clothing stained, vekepta, hat blood, and multiple firearms. Among the clothing was a pair of camouflage cargo shorts heavily stained with blood, which DNA testing subsequently confirmed belonged to Marlon Wade Reese. Most importantly, when interviewing the staff at the storage facility, investigators learned that Amy Reese had visited the unit in the company of her 3 children. The employees recalled watching the children while Amy moved items in and out of the storage space. This sighting was a pivotal moment in the investigation. It provided concrete evidence that Amy and the children were alive, and it effectively dispelled the theory that she had been abducted, shifting the primary focus of the investigation toward her as the lead suspect. To locate Amy Reese, who had ceased all communication and deactivated the global positioning system functions on her mobile devices, investigators utilized the database of the Department of Motor Vehicles. By running her name across all 50 states, dispatchers discovered that she had recently obtained a Driver S license in the state of Colorado. This vital information allowed the Ellis County Sheriff S Department to coordinate directly with the Denver Police Department. Investigators located the school enrollment records for the children in Denver, confirming they were safe. When police officers visited the residential address listed on the new Driver S license, they learned that Amy was not currently at the home. She had befriended the homeowner, who was assisting her with childcare while she searched for employment. Working collaboratively, the Denver Police Department and the resident devised a peaceful plan to bring Amy back to the home by informing her of a minor, fictional emergency regarding her youngest child. When Amy arrived at the residence, she was taken into custody without incident, ensuring the safety of the children, who were subsequently placed under the care of local child protective services. During her interrogation with Denver police, homicide detective Castro, Amy Reese sought to portray herself as a victim of domestic adversity. She claimed that she had fled Texas in the middle of the night on October 14th to protect her daughters from what she described as physical and verbal abuse, alleging that Wade had behaved inappropriately and violently. She stated that she had returned to the trailer briefly on October 15th to gather personal belongings while Wade was away, and then traveled through Oklahoma and Kansas before arriving in Colorado. However, when the detective informed her that Wade had been found deceased, her demeanor shifted. Rather than showing grief or surprise, she made a telling statement, suggesting that she was destined to be blamed and requesting legal representation, which brought the interview to a conclusion. The investigation quickly dismantled Amy's claims of self-defense and maternal protection. Records from Child Protective Services revealed a history of family intervention dating back to the year 2003, which was primarily centered around neglect and physical abuse attributed to Amy, rather than Wade. In the year 2009, the children had been temporarily removed from the home after Amy was arrested for assaulting Wade. Furthermore, forensic analysis of Amy S. electronic devices revealed a highly active digital life immediately following Wade S.'s death. Within days of the homicide, she had engaged in adult communication platforms, exchanging messaging and graphic photographs with various individuals, showing an absolute absence of remorse or mourning while her husband S. remains lay in the abandoned trailer. The final piece of direct physical evidence came from the analysis of financial transactions and retail security footage. Investigators traced the purchase of the cleaning supplies, the green trash can, and the respirator mask found at the crime scene to local retail stores in Red Oak and Waxahachie. Security camera footage from a Walmart store captured Amy purchasing these exact items, paying with cash obtained from an automated teller machine, as well as utilizing her women, infants, and children program assistance card for certain purchases. In the video, she was accompanied by her young daughter, demonstrating a chilling level of composure as she purchased the tools intended to conceal her crime. Furthermore, laboratory results confirmed that the latent fingerprints found on the trash bags and respirator packaging inside the discarded trash can matched Amy S. prints, providing an undeniable forensic link between her and the concealment of the homicide. On January 20th in the year 2013, Amy Reese was extradited from Colorado to Texas to face charges of murder. When her trial began in April of the year 2015 in Ellis County, she entered a plea of guilty, leaving the jury to determine her punishment. The defense attempted to present mitigating factors, focusing on her difficult childhood in the foster care system and reiterating her unverified allegations of abuse against Wade. However, the prosecution successfully demonstrated that the crime was a cold, pre-planned, and calculated act of violence, carried out while the victim slept and executed with the assistance of her special needs child, who was utilized to help carry out the cleanup and concealment. The jury rejected her pleas for leniency, and on April 21st in the year 2015, they sentenced her to life in prison, with a requirement to serve at least 30 years before becoming eligible for parole. This tragic case offers profound lessons for Beote Hut communities and law enforcement. For families and neighborhoods, it underscores the importance of recognizing the complex dynamics of domestic relationships and the vital role of early intervention when patterns of instability, domestic disputes, and child protective service involvement are present. Proactive community support and accessible social services are essential to addressing underlying household conflicts before they escalate into irreversible tragedies.